Welcome to Undiet Your Coaching Practice podcast. I'm Stephanie Dozier, clinical nutritionist, certified intuitive eating counselor, and creator of the Going to Beyond the Food method. And after a 25-year dieting career, I decided to say hell no to diet culture and undiet my life, which also included my coaching practice. I'm on a mission to help all coaches undiet not only their life, but their coaching business. If you want to throw down diet culture, you're in the right place. Ready, sisters? Let's do this. Welcome back, my dear colleague. This episode is going to be a business coaching episode because I think this topic of bro marketing versus ethical marketing is something that at least we shall all be aware of. Now, what you do with the information after that is totally up to you. But I wanted to bring you behind the scene of my business and share with you the wisdom of Michelle Mazur and how she changed my business, and also how she's impacting our student inside the non-diet mentorship program, because she teaches a class called How to Implement Ethical Marketing, and she does it with such brilliance. So I wanted to bring in the podcast and use my consumer business, Undiet Your Life, to show you visually and feeling-based how ethical marketing is. Now, just a little bit of background. My business was not always done with ethical marketing concepts and value. And I share that also in the podcast. But I want to give you a little bit of background on this. Some of you may or may not know, I have been a business coach for almost 25 years now. Prior to coming to the world of health, I actually was in the retail business in Canada for 15 years. I was working for a retailer and I was a business coach. I was a store manager coach, a district manager, vice president of store operations. I ran businesses. And I was trained my entire career in marketing, which at the time, there was no qualificative before the term marketing. It was just marketing. Marketing was fear-based sales tactic, and that's what everybody did. Like literally every type of businesses use at that time fear-based sales tactic, because that was all there was. So when I opened, fast forward 15 years and my retail business career, come into the world of health, and I open a nutrition clinic in Toronto, guess what? I use my training from the retail world and what all the books and all the experts said, and it was, quote, bro marketing. But at the time, again, it was just marketing. And about 7 years ago, my business was growing and I wanted to turn my clinic into an online business, come in beyond the food about 6 years ago. I joined a mastermind in California, at the time, number one mastermind for health practitioner. And I paid a lot of money, like 5+ figure to join this mastermind. And we went in for a week of intensive on how to build online businesses. And I got to say this to you, the whole time that these experts were teaching us how to market health businesses online, my body compass, my intuition was screaming, no. It didn't feel good. It felt yucky, literally yucky. As we were implementing and practicing, the whole thing felt wrong. But although my intuition, my body compass was telling me this, my brain was like, well, so what if it doesn't feel good? There's nothing else out there. And literally, there was nothing else out there until other people came into my life and started to converse around, well, how can we do business and market our business in alignment with our personal value? And that's when Kelly Deals came into my life, and then Michelle. And it then became clear why my body compass was screaming. Because my marketing, my business approach to Beyond the Food, my consumer business, was not in alignment with my personal value. That's why it felt so yucky. So I'm telling you this story because if you're listening to this right now and you are where I was, and someone or something is coaching you on business, on marketing, and it feels yucky, I want you to know that there is today in 2021, there is other option. There is other business program, other coaches, other marketing technique that will align with your personal value. And that's why I wanted to put this episode out into the world so you can see and know the other option, which I didn't have 7 to 10 years ago. So with that being said, we're going to talk to Michelle. Michelle is a brilliant marketing messaging specialist. She actually has a PhD in communication. She actually researched what she's teaching and put data behind it. And now she helps business owner like me, and perhaps some of you in the future, to put a marketing message that is in alignment with their personal value. So with that in mind, let's go to the interview. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
You know, when I wanted to come out with this podcast, you were one of the top 5 people I wanted to get on this podcast.
Thank you.
I learned so much from working with you. So Michelle was one of the consultant and the engineer behind my consumer business, Untitled Your Life. And she'll refer to that throughout the podcast. But I've learned so much from working with you that I know you're not going to, we only have 40 minutes, but you're going to do your best to teach people.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned from you is the concept of bro marketing. What the heck is bro marketing?
Well, bro marketing is the predominant form of marketing that we see in online business or in the online space in general. And it's marketing that uses a variety of tactics like scarcity, authority, social proof, neuro-linguistic programming. And if you don't know what that is, good. But you probably do not want to be using it in your marketing and sales. But the purpose of using this is basically to manipulate you into making a sale. So what bro marketing does in the mind of the consumer, it shuts down critical thinking and eliminates our ability to consent, to be persuaded, to think through things. So it really takes away our agency so that we make a decision not based on what's best for us, what's best for our business, but because of the fear of missing out or oh, well, this person says that this is the thing my business needs or my life needs, so I better do it. And you just pull out your credit card and sometimes make really large purchases without thinking it through and using your critical thinking skills.
I used to call it, before I met you, diet culture marketing. So the listener will understand diet culture versus the non-diet approach. Yeah. Diet culture marketing is bro marketing.
Yes. 100%.
And I've used it. I have to say, because that was the only thing back 8 years ago. That was the only thing out there.
Well, and we weren't having this conversation at all about ethical marketing versus bro marketing or diet culture marketing. And it has been the thing that is taught in the online space. It is literally the air we breathe in, we breathe, the water we swim in. And so it's not surprising that you're a very ethical person and want to have an above board business, you were using these tactics because it's what was taught. And even when I came in, I have a PhD, I used to teach persuasion. I could see what these marketers were teaching. And I thought, well, I guess that's just the way it's done in business because I didn't really know. I knew it wasn't great. It didn't feel aligned, but I kind of fell for it too.
Well, I can tell you, it felt yucky.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I sat in those health mastermind practitioner and I felt yucky, but I'm like, okay, well, that's the thing I have to do. So let's do it, right?
Yeah,
Even though it didn't feel good.
I know. And the thing is, it works. It really does
Yeah.
work. It shortcuts your thinking. It increases your bottom line. But at the same time, there's some consequences to that where if you're using these tactics, then you're getting people who aren't right for your product, your service, and they can feel resentful. So while it might be great for a fast cash grab, like if you want actual like loyalty and people to refer you, then you really shouldn't be using these kinds of tactics and really giving people their agency to make a decision about whether or not this program is right.
So if we don't partake into bro marketing, so for many, many people listening, they're like, this is the first introduction to bro marketing.
Yeah.
They're probably like, so then what else? So the opposite to bro marketing is ethical marketing.
Yeah. So it is ethical marketing where at the end of the day, you give people agency, the agency to make a decision, yes or no, without you being attached to it, the agency to enter into your sales process, your marketing funnel, because at the end of the day, you want them to make the best decision for themselves. And so as a person who's out there doing marketing, what ends up having to happen is that your message has to change, because the great thing about bro marketing is that you can use like a lot of swipes and templates and all of these resources out there. And you don't have to think about, well, how do I need to position this and make an argument for this and help people come over their resistance to taking a certain action by giving them the information they need. And so being an ethical marketer means you really have to know what your values are first off and how to apply those and use those as a filter in what marketing tactics you are using. Because I mean, you and I have talked about this before, that it's not necessarily that scarcity is bad.
No.
Like scarcity is actually a neutral thing and it exists naturally, because if you have a course that starts on a certain date, you got to tell people that. If you have capacity for 10 people, you can tell people that, like, that's okay. But if you're just like, I don't know, trumping up some scarcity, like a disappearing bonus or something during a launch, and the purpose of that is to juice your sales numbers, then that's kind of an ethical quagmire you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Or literally fabricating scarcity that is not present. Like I was taught that years ago, like just pretend that it's closing and then plan already to reopen it. Like that's not ethical. Only doing that to sell.
Yeah, I've seen that so many times where people are like, the card is closing, the card is closing. And then like, oh, we had some technical difficulty, so we're going to leave it open for 2 more days. And I'm like, did you really have some technical difficulty, or are the numbers not what you want them to be?
So bro marketing is when we generally coerce people into buying.
Yes.
And ethical marketing is when we build an argument to demonstrate the value of our offer. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. And when we do that, we're helping people make an active decision to say yes or to say no. But your job as a business person is just to give people the information they need to make a decision, because I don't want people languishing in indecision. That sucks. So how can I help you decide, like, this is for you or this isn't for you? And we do that through our message and building that argument on our sales pages or through our marketing materials.
So let's go down to the next step. Another thing that I learned from you is the concept of messaging versus marketing.
Yes. So, and I think people get this confused a whole lot, along with copywriting, because they'll also think
Mhm.
that the copy that goes on your website, that's messaging, but it's not. So, messaging is the shortcut to think about it is what you're going to say. So, it's an overarching strategy that feeds into your marketing, your PR, your copy, but it's the overarching, like, this is what I'm going to say. I have the 3 word rebellion instead of a unique selling proposition, but here's how I'm different and how I'm communicating that. And once I get people's attention, how do I strategically move them from like not knowing me at all to me introducing to them what the real problem is, to showing them the solution, to having them make the decision to buy or not buy. And so that's the overarching strategy. Then you take that strategy and you apply it to your marketing, because marketing is just basically tactics to reach more people. Like that's the goal of marketing, is to reach more people, build your brand awareness, and get them interested in your offer. So some of that lead generation. But we need to have a message before we can go to market, because if we don't know what to say, our marketing doesn't really work, and it's a little bit all over the place. And then we get frustrated, or we sit down to write social media posts and like, oh, I don't know. What do I say in these? Because we're trying to implement some tactics or a marketing strategy without knowing what to say in order to get people's attention and create connection with them.
We improvise on the fly. That's the best way that I like to express what happened to me before.
Yeah, it's just like, well, what should I say? Like, okay, I got to send an email. I guess I'll send it about this. So there's no real thinking about, okay, like for me, when I think about my own message, when I sit down to write an email, I'm very intentional about like, what do I want this email to do, for the business, but also like, what do I want people to take away from this email that's going to get them closer to like shifting some beliefs so that they're ready to work with me? And that's a very different approach than I'm just going to email my list some random story that happened a couple of days ago, which people
Exactly.
do all the time.
Which is what I call influencer marketing. Like influencer marketing is when people like use their life and what happened and the thing they cook and the thing they did. That's not necessarily the kind of marketing we do as service-based businesses.
Yeah. And also we're experts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like my life is pretty boring, Stephanie. Like I don't know how I would use my life to market. Like, oh, here's me cleaning my litter box. Like, oh my gosh, my life is not all that interesting. And I have a business. I don't want to monetize my own identity. Like that feels
Mm-hmm.
kind of gross to me. And it's not to say that you can't bring yourself or tell, because you do want people to make a
Yes.
connection with you, but you want to be strategic with the kinds of stories you're telling. And what you had for dinner last night is probably not related. It could be related, but maybe not to like the goals of your business and how you're trying to help people.
I think this is very relevant to us because the number one question we get from practitioners, like when we do survey of our community, is how do I get people to work with me that are ready to not chase weight loss? And this is where messaging, belief shifting, ethical marketing comes in, because our future client has been through the ringers with bro marketing, because they did the diet culture, weight loss, fear-based marketing. And now they're entering our world and they don't want to be sold in the same way because our proposition is different.
Yeah. And, I even think about when you and I first started
Yes.
talking and you just told me, you're like, I never realized that I needed to have this message, this undiet your life message to go out and market with. Because I know, like, you, the first thing you did was like, I'm stripping my funnel from all this bro marketing crap. And then, okay, the funnel doesn't perform as well because you
Yes.
don't have the rest of the messaging in place. But yeah, I completely agree.
So when we create a message structure,
Mm-hmm.
from there, we then build our marketing message. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you give example perhaps from what we did together?
Sure. Yes. Yes. So the first thing I always do with people is the audience deep dive because I need to know your people.
Yeah.
Because your message starts with them. It doesn't start with you. Contrary to popular belief,
Yes.
realizing like you are not your message. Like you just aren't, you're not selling yourself. You're selling results. You're selling your services. So I always start with that piece so we can understand and empathize. And instead of pain point marketing, we acknowledge the challenge people are having and name the villain of the story. And then we create the 3-word rebellion. For you, that was undiet your life. And I love the story of finding undiet your life. Because I was watching some of your videos and it was something that you just kind of flew out of your mouth. And I was like, writing this down. I'm like, undiet your life. That is brilliant.
And often your message, your 3-word rebellion, and you'll tell people what the 3-word rebellion is, but the core of your message is something you say repeatedly that you don't even realize you're saying.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Even the other day, I was working with a client to find her 3-word rebellion. And the 3-word rebellion is like the one of a kind message that positions your business in a category of one, helps get people curious about what it is you do. You know, think start with why or 5-second rule. But I was working with this client the other day and I just had this intuitive hit that I should look at her website again. And I was looking through it, and at the very bottom, right, like above in the footer, like above her subscribe for her newsletter, there it was, like the 3-word rebellion. It was right there. And I'm like, oh, here you go. It's something you've already been using and saying. So it's really powerful because once you have that 3-word rebellion, that core message, then you build all your other messaging around it. Because the question is like, well, what is this 3-word rebellion? What does it mean to people? How do I get people who don't know about this 3-word rebellion to buy in? What are the conversations that I'm having? And I call that the client decision journey. And so we talk about calls to action and belief shifts and meeting people where they are. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, how am I taking them on this strategic journey in my marketing, in my sales, to move people to be interested in the movement in the business I'm creating? Because for you, you're trying to take down diet culture. That's a big thing. So what are those conversations? And once we know those conversations, then we can slot in your stories and figure out like, okay, well, what is your signature story that's going to really connect people to you, that make them feel like, man, this Stephanie person, she really understands me. And so when we have all of that, then it's like you have a good idea of like, okay, these are the key messages that I can do my marketing around. Or this is the copy for my website. Or we created something called like a why buy statement for you, which is here's the big promise of this 3-word rebellion. And so all of these key messages come together to help persuade people and help them make a decision.
So I'll give an example to this, right? Because
Yes.
belief shift, right, is how I teach. Even when we look at the structure of the coaching program, like how to take your client from point A to point B, it's all about belief shifting.
Yes.
So when we come over to marketing, it's the same thing, is building the argument through your messaging, through your marketing, as to why the client or the future client should go from A to B and shift their belief. Example, weight equals health.
Yes.
Right? That's a belief shift that we need to articulate.
Yes, yes. Because, well, and it's kind of like myth busting, right? People have a lot of misconceptions about weight and health. I mean, I could probably think of like
The BMI, remember the research on BMI I showed you? You're like,
oh
what
yeah.
the hell?
Oh yeah, or like the starvation diet. The, what
Yeah,
was it? The
Minnesota. Yeah.
starvation
So it's
diet.
just,
Like, there's a lot of research about like why low calorie diets don't work, and they cause you to literally lose your mind because your brain can't work on 1,200 calories a day, and there's tons of research that supports that. So we can like, and with your clientele, like they're so smart and savvy, like they want to know the research. So
yes.
when they start hearing some of these stories and the research, they're like, mind blown. Oh, my weight doesn't equal my health. I'm focusing on the wrong thing. And then it's like, well, then what should I be focusing on? So it leads them, when we can bust through that belief, it kind of leads them to the next question that they have.
And that's when our solution proposition.
Because for you, it's like, oh, what should I be focusing on? Well, you should focus on undiet your life, which is this, this, and this.
So I think this example will help people listening connect to what it looks like, because that's why I'll come back to the number one question we get on survey. That's why you land with people in a consultation who want to lose weight, even though that's not what you provide, is because your marketing has not explained that. So people land to you not ready to buy from you.
Exactly. And your message needs to get people ready to buy. There's always a certain set of beliefs that either you need to shift or you need to do some myth busting around in order to get people ready for your program. Like, I know for me, just even explaining to people like what messaging is, because they don't know it's actually a thing. Like, that's one of the things I have to shift in the people I talk to.
You have to shift the belief that messaging and marketing are not the same thing.
Yeah. So I have to bust that myth because they're not ready to work with me. Like, if you come to me and don't think you have a messaging problem, then why are we even talking? And it's like,
So,
for your people, if somebody's getting on a call with you and they're concerned about weight loss, then they're still not ready to work with you.
yeah, and they definitely will not buy from you when you tell them you don't provide weight loss services.
Yeah, because they're still very much ensconced into diet culture.
So I just want to illustrate again the difference between ethical marketing and bro marketing. Bro marketing doesn't do this argument, doesn't bust belief. It use quote fear-based tactic to shift people into buying instead of using their intelligence to make them do a buying decision. Did I get this illustration right?
Yes, 100%. That is exactly it. Because if you were bro marketing, you would make your solution look like the only solution that was going to solve all of their problems, and they can't miss out on it. And you know what you're talking about. And you probably would still have someone like the diet culture, weight loss example, testimonials that are probably results not typical. So, yes, you're right, 100%.
So let's go from understanding all of this and saying, okay, wow, you just blown my mind, which I know a majority of people listening to that will be like, well, okay, my brain just got blown. Where do I even begin?
So that's such a good question. I would say there's a couple of places you can begin. The first thing I would recommend, if you've been using bro marketing tactics, don't get rid of everything right away.
Yeah, don't do what I did.
Yeah. Like, I admired that, but I'm like, you can do this over time. Like, it takes time. So if it's working and it's providing revenue for your business and that's how you're paying yourself, don't strip everything out, because yeah, that will prevent your business from actually moving forward and giving you the revenue you need to like reinvest in doing it a different way. So the places I would start, number one, the audience work, like making sure you really are listening to your people and hearing how they're talking. And then it starts with the 3-word rebellion, because you need that core message to build all the other messaging around. And like on my website, you can get like a taster of the 3-word rebellion.
Or the book. I mean, the book is
or
what,
the
$20?
book. Oh, it's
whatever.
like 14. Yeah.
$14, right?
So the book is an excellent place to start because it walks you through the process of figuring out what your 3-word rebellion could be. And even if you don't completely 100% land on it, you're going to get a lot of clarity about some of the conversations you need to be having. You're going to get a lot of content ideas that are way more strategic than I need to talk about my gym routine that I did yesterday.
Exactly. And this is always with the attitude of compassion with yourself. Like we use compassion in our practices, like building your ethical marketing and messages. It's not going to be done in one time. Trust me. I've been at this for 8 years and I finally landed on Undiet Your Life. It's going to take time.
Yeah, it was funny. I was doing a podcast interview yesterday with an author, and he was telling me how much he struggled with coming up with the title of his book because he's like, this is the thing I need to say over and over and over as I promote the book. And he's like, I wish I would have had your book to figure it out because it's difficult. Like it's difficult to see it, especially because you've had this experience. Like you have so much content and talk about so many different things that it can be hard to find that overarching message because of that curse of knowledge.
Yes.
But when you find it and can be like, okay, this is what I'm hanging my hat on in this business, everything just becomes easier. You know what to say in your marketing and how to prepare for launches and how to like write copy or hire a copywriter and hand them off your like brand message guide and be like, this is the copy, like this is the message for the copy.
So I'm going to share this experience. That's what we did with the consumer business. For the first time in my life, I didn't write the copy.
Oh, I bet that felt great.
It felt great, but scary as shit.
Uh-huh.
But wonderful. So we did the message. So I worked, Michelle consulted, like she held my hand and we built the 3-word rebellion and all the things about my message. Then I went and handed it over to Flourish, the company that does all the marketing for our business now. And I just sat back and then waited. And then they came back with the copy of the sales page. The person that wrote was not a health practitioner. She was not a diet culture person, but just from your PDF, she was able to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's what you want. Because what I see so many times happen is people hire copywriters before they have a message and they think the copywriter is going to give them the message.
What's the difference between copywriter and message? Let's clarify that piece too.
Yeah, the copywriter piece is the implementation of the message. So they are technical experts in like how to write copy. So while your message is the what, the copy is turned into that. It's how it's implemented. So when you go to a copywriter and you're not sure what your message is, you're basically asking that copywriter to take on a second job, because in order for them to use their technical expertise to get you something that converts for your website, they're like, I guess I got to figure out what your message is if you don't know. Or they just kind of take what you give them and do their best, which then you're like, well, this copywriter was terrible. It's just not working. And it's like, was it the copywriter or was it that you didn't understand what you needed to say to move people to action? And it's usually the latter.
Okay, so let's recap. Understand your ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
Find your 3-word rebellion.
Yes.
Is there another step that you would get people started with after that? And then using it, I guess?
Yeah. And then once you find your 3-word rebellion, before you do any of the other work, it's kind of, you want to test it.
Okay.
And there's a couple of different ways. In the updated version of the book, I talk about the Intrigue Loop, which is just like a really easy test because your 3-word rebellion should make people like curious and lean forward and be like, ooh, tell me more about this. And if it doesn't, it's a dead end message. So for instance, like if you hear something like live your best life.
Oh, Lord.
I know, like that's the type of message that people have seen a lot. They just they don't know what it means. They don't care. And it doesn't make them think. But if you hear something like undiet your life, it makes people stop and be like, okay, so that's curious. Like I'm interested in that. And what would it look like for me to undiet my life? And so if you can get people thinking about you with just 3 words, ooh, they're going to be hooked. They're going to want to know more and dive deeper into your work. And really, that's the job of it. So once you think you have your 3-word rebellion, it's important to like run it through that intrigue loop to make sure that people are curious, but also test it, and don't test it in like a Facebook group. Like, hey, everyone, I think this is my 3-word rebellion.
No.
What do you think? And I'm always like, no, these people are strangers. Or ask your husband. That was another one. One of my clients was like, my husband really doesn't like my 3-word rebellion. And I was like, oh, I didn't know he was your ideal client. Ask the right people, like your favorite clients, your trusted business besties.
And don't do it as going on your Instagram feed and say, hey, people, do you like this message? No. Put it to work, like write a blog post, do a graphic, and see what the response is. Is that right?
Yeah. Because you can do like little tests, use it in a sales conversation and see if it makes the person go like, oh, well, what does that mean? Tell me more. I'm curious.
So people have to say, oh, I'm curious. What does that mean?
Yeah. Or just lean forward and just kind of be like, oh, yeah, tell me more.
So I'm not going to dive into this in this podcast because that's not your world, but start with your ideal client. If you don't understand who you serve, none of that matter because you're going to end up with the wrong message.
Yeah. And that's why I start with like audience deep dive work and kind of building out a client empathy map, because if we don't understand our people and how they're thinking, seeing what they're struggling with, what they're hearing, what they really want, then it's really hard to create a 3-word rebellion that resonates. Like even for like me with the 3-word rebellion, I purposely picked each of those 3 words, and especially the word rebellion, because I knew it was going to filter out people who were more commodity-based businesses like tax accountants. And I knew it would attract more of like the innovators, the change makers. Like those are the people I want to be working with.
So if everybody go on our website and go to Work With Me tab and it says Undiet Your Life, you will see that I don't speak to everyone. I use curse word. I talk about revolution. I talk about rebellion to some extent. I use graphic and image that represent my client.
Yes.
Right? And that was another thing. When we work with the marketing agency, like it was all 20-year-old pictures. I'm like, no. Like,
Nope.
Designer here, you didn't get me. Like, that's not who I work with. I work with mature, older women. Right? So it's so important that you use the right graphic and the right images alongside with the message.
Yeah, because I'm sure you've been on websites where like maybe somebody catches your attention on social media and then you go to their website and you're like, what is this? Like this seems such a disconnect between what they were talking about here and the imagery and the words on their website.
Yes.
And then that just causes people to bounce.
And so I'll go into your world, the story you're using. Like for an example, I use a lot of research and data points because that's my client.
Yes. Yeah. And your client wants to hear that.
Yeah. Here's another example. I don't use story around motherhood. I'm not a mother. Right? Number one. But number two, my program doesn't serve the purpose of teaching undieting motherhood. We don't talk about kids. We don't talk about family. We're solely focused on women.
Yep.
So you got to create stories. And this is what your process taught me that relates to my ideal client.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of bad advice about storytelling. Like, all you need is your story to succeed. And it's like, no, you need a story that your client resonates with and can see themselves in. Like, I call that the story turnaround, because so many times in business, people make their businesses about them. Like,
Sure.
my story, and this was my journey, and me, 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 me. And meanwhile, your potential client is like, well, that's great for you, but what about me? Versus telling a story where they can relate, like they can see that, oh, she once was where I was. Like, I get this. I'm more hooked in. But you have to do that in a very intentional way. Like, you have to understand like what the moral of the story is you're telling for that audience member.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the times we don't think about that. We just like, oh, well, I need a rags to riches story. So people, which is another bro marketing thing. So people like connect with me and see that I'm an expert. And I'm like, no, you don't need that at all.
If you want so I often, when I explain to people what bro marketing is, I give them the visual of the person identify as a man standing on a yacht, throwing bills in the ocean, right? That's what bro marketing is. So if you use you is a great example, picture of you in this idyllic setting with the perfect clothes and the perfect environment, what Kelly Dills called the
female lifestyle empowerment brand.
We will have Kelly on the podcast too, but like that's the rag to riches. You're like, okay, if you do what I'm telling you, you take my program, you're going to look like this and you're going to be in this $1 million home and you're going to like, that's
all your
marketing.
Dreams will come true.
Yes. That's not ethical marketing.
No. And I think it's marketing that I feel like more and more people are getting savvy to it. Like anything, like, because anything that sounds too good to be true usually is. And when a program is, really positioning itself as like, this is the thing that's going to change your life, that should make you go like, whoa, is it? Like, is it really? If you're teaching me how to give a webinar, is that really going to change my life? It might make my webinars better and more effective, and that's cool, but I don't really buy the life-changing, I'm going to get my Tesla webinar.
So let's talk about where can people find out more about you. I know I think you have 2 podcasts now.
Yeah. Yes. So my podcast is the Rebel Uprising podcast, and we talk about all things messaging and ethical marketing and really like how to step out and be the leader in your industry. And then I have Duped, which is the dark side of online business that I co-host with Maggie Patterson. And we are just starting to record season 2. So there's a whole 8 episodes you can go listen to if you really want to dive into some of this stuff. So season 1 is out, and we'll start season 2 October 18th, I believe.
2021.
2021. Yeah. October 18th, 2021. So if you're listening to this in 2022, it's out both seasons. You can just binge it. And if you want to connect with me, my website's drmichellemazur.com. You can find out more about the 3-Word Rebellion book. There's also a taster of that book at 3wordrebellion.com. And I'm on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Mazur.
Perfect. And people can work with you through the book, but you also offer one-on-one consults or consulting services.
Yes, I do. So if you want to go through the same process that Stephanie went through, then that is something available for you on the website, drmichellemazur.com. You can read the sales page, has a lot of information, and then just request a consult and we'll chat and make sure it's the right time and the right decision for your business.
Perfect. I'm excited for people to discover your world. I think you're going to help a lot of practitioners.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
It was a pleasure as always. Are you ready to launch your non-diet coaching business or perhaps transition your current business to the non-diet model? Awesome. We have a program that will help you just do that and reach your goal. The Non-Diet Mentorship Program is a 6-month journey of business and professional development exclusively designed for health entrepreneurs mastering their own journey with diet culture, food and body image, while also learning to build, grow, and transition their business with ethic so that they can have a massive impact. Our next cohort will begin January 3rd, 2022, and we will accept applications from November 15th, 2021. You can join our waitlist to be the first notified. Find the details at stephaniedodier.com/mentorship or use the link in the show notes. Maybe I'll see you on the other side. Ready to shed diet culture from your practice and help more clients do the same? Awesome. We've got free resources to get you started. Simply go to stephaniedodier.com/pro series, all in one word, and access our 3 free training classes that are currently available. We also have a free PDF guide to intuitive eating, an article about the non-diet approach. We also offer a variety of paid programs throughout the year to support you in your journey to undiet your coaching practice. Join us at stephaniedodier.com/pro series, and I'll see you on the other side.